My screen, because I'm sharing my screen, so it's different here. Yeah, now
Right.
we got it.
Yeah,
Yep.
got it. Thank you, guys. All right, then. Officially, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Actuarial Ambassador Program. Today is February 26, 2021. This is session number 3. I am In Kyung-pyo, your New York Life sponsor. I think you know who I am by now. And I am delighted to introduce you another New York Life sponsor, Zhang Marcian Kapolansi. Hi, Zhang.
Hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. Happy to join.
Zhang is from New York Life, but he's also graduated from Georgia State University. So here we are.
Yeah.
Today, we have prepared Excel workshop. Excel is a fundamental tool that all actuaries use throughout their career from the very beginning. So this is one of the key skills that you will use throughout your career. And I hope today's session provides you a basis to growth of your important skill set. And before we start, I would like to ask you to mute your audio during the presentation so that it doesn't interfere with speakers. If you have any question, you can use raise your hand or chat box to write your question directly. One of us will catch it and make a time to get to your question. Next slide. Now let me introduce you to today's instructor, Tommy Swatsky. Tommy joined New York Life Actuarial Student Program in 2017 after graduating from the University of Connecticut with degree in finance and actuarial science. During her time in New York Life, she has worked on regulatory testing of the company's universal life product, as well as weekly pricing of the company's fixed annuities. She has been involved in Excel and VBA training for actuarial interns at New York Life for past 3 years. She is very experienced in this topic. Now, welcome, Tommy. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Inkyun.
I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, John, you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So, as Inkyung said, I've been doing the Excel training for New York Life's actuarial interns for over 3 years now. So typically this is a full day of training that we do, but I've tried to kind of weed it down to just a quick 1-hour session to kind of give you a good overview of both basic Excel, intermediate Excel, advanced Excel. And then I also want to just introduce you to VBA, or Visual Basic, which is the programming language that's within Excel. So because we've kind of condensed this down, we also have a homework. It's not mandatory, it won't be graded, but if you go to the next slide, we will be just accepting submissions, so you can send them over to us. We will look over anything that you send us. If you have any specific question or anything in particular you had trouble with, definitely put that in the email, because we will be hosting an office hour 2 weeks from now on March 11th, and we'll use that time to really just go over any issues that you guys specifically want to go over, and we can go over the answers or anything we touched on in class, really tailored to you guys. So just hoping that will kind of help with the kind of brevity of today's session. So I will start sharing my screen. Okay. Can you guys see my screen now with the introduction to Microsoft Excel?
Yes, we can see it.
And you can see the Excel workbook now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to be kind of going through both this Word document as well as some examples in Excel. So you'll just see me kind of hop back and forth, and you'll be getting all of these materials as well. So don't feel like you need to copy down or take notes on any of this in extensive notes or anything. So because you will be getting these materials afterwards. So first, I just want to kind of give an introduction to Excel. So why Excel? What is Excel? It's really a spreadsheet application. So it lets you calculate numbers, analyze, organize data. And it's really important as an actuary, as kind of In-Kyung introduced. We use it for financial modeling, organizing results from modeling software. So you might need to present tables or charts to management. And it's also a way to kind of check our work from those other modeling software. So sometimes you need to do spot checks or kind of get some rough estimates from kind of more complex modeling software that you might be using as an actuary. So I'm sure a lot of you probably had some level of exposure to Excel. I'm kind of trying to make sure that this touches on anybody's level of experience. So first off is just basic Excel. So these first formulas listed here: sum, product, average, minimum, maximum, count, variance, percentile. They are all really exactly what you think they are. So there's not too much complication there. Excel is very user-friendly in that way, that they design a lot of their functions just to be exactly what you think it should be. So I do want to just first go over a few examples here. So on this Excel workbook, I've got policy data here. So basically all of my examples will kind of refer back to this policy data that you see here. So the first exercise I want to do is this exercise 1, where we fill in the basic data summaries. So going back to my Excel workbook, that's just this table up here, basic data summaries. So this was kind of built out to be user-friendly. So once you kind of get your hands on this, you'll see that kind of is helpful. The boxes turn green when you have the correct answer. And once you have all of the correct answers, your completion percentage goes to 100%. So just something good to keep in mind when you do take a look at this later on. So I'll just start off with average issue age. So when you're using Excel, you can just start typing what you want, and you'll see you'll get actually a pop or kind of a list pops up with kind of a variety of functions that start or have the letters that you type in. You can use the arrow keys on your keyboard to kind of bounce through those. So I want this second one. And once you have the one that you want to use, you can actually press Tab on your keyboard, and that will populate that function into the Excel workbook. So then you'll see next to the function is what your arguments are. So in this case, we just need to give a series of numbers. So kind of basic Excel, when there's no brackets, that means that argument is required. When there is brackets, that means it's optional. So in this case, we could just take the average of one number. So that's why a second number is optional. But in kind of our case, we're going to take the average of all issue ages. So I'm going to go over to my policy data tab. And I'm going to select everything in this issue age column. So what I could do is just click and drag all the way down. But there's really a lot of rows here, so it might take me a while to scroll all the way down. But Excel is very helpful, so you can actually kind of use your keyboard to kind of make things a bit faster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the first cell here that I want. So that's the first issue age in row 2. And then I can press Control and Shift at the same time, as well as the down arrow key. And that's going to select everything that's in that range. So then I will just end my parentheses, press Enter, and then I get my average issue age as 47. So I just kind of want to go back to that over here. So I know you can't see my hands and what I'm doing with my keyboard, so I'm trying to explain this best I can. But the Control, Shift, and arrow keys are very much your friends with Excel. So if I press Control and an arrow key, it will just bring me to the end. So if I press Control and the down arrow key, it'll take me all the way to the bottom. If I press Control to the left, it will go all the way to the leftmost. Control to the right, I can go all the way to the right. And then if I press Control plus Shift at the same time, it selects everything in that range. So it's going to select everything from where I'm currently am all the way to the bottom. So just kind of helpful tools to have in your kind of back pocket. Definitely encourage you to play around and kind of get comfortable with that. As you start working, you will realize that, you know, those really do come in handy when you don't have to always be going back and forth to the mouse. So I will show one more of these examples. So I think a lot of these are pretty straightforward, and I'm just going to show count. So for count, there's really 2 options. There's the count function, which will count all the numbers in my array. So if I go to count, I'm going to go to the premium. I'm going to select all of those in that column. Press Enter. You see I'll get the 3,159 entries. When you're doing text though, this function only is going to capture number values. So whether it's a 0 or whether it's a number, it's only going to count those entries. It's not going to count anything with text. So as an example, I can just show going to the sex column that only has M's and F's. So if I select that using my count function, you'll see I get 0. And that's because every entry in that column has text. There's no number values in that. So to get around that, Excel created the function count A, and count A will count everything that has either text or a number value. So basically it's going to exclude anything that's blank, not a 0, but blank. And we'll give you everything that has some sort of value, whether it's a text or a number. So there we go. Once I use count A, I get the same number of entries as I did with premium. So I'm going to refer back to my Word document here. Definitely good to go through the rest of those summaries on your own. But just for today's class, I'm just going to kind of breeze through these here.
Tommy, is it possible to make the screens a little bit bigger, the documents that you were showing, Excels as well?
Yeah,
thank you.
Okay, so going back to my Excel workbook. So I'm just going to kind of go through a few of these different functions. So I'll just zoom in here. Oops. I guess another Excel lesson, there is a zoom bar on the right here. Same with, you know, Word has, so you can just easily zoom in. So there's a few different kind of fun features with Excel. There's a row formula, and that will return the row of the cell that you press, or the cell that you reference. So if I say row to say E9, it's going to come out with the number 9 because that is the 9th row. I can also type in row with no arguments inside, and it's going to return the row of the current cell that I'm in. So I'm in row 2, so it returns 2. And then you have the same feature with column, or again, it's just going to give you the number value of what column you're currently in. Another helpful feature is round. So say I had a number that looked like this. I'll zoom in a little bit more. I had a number 1234.5678. See, right now I just have the full number, but say I'm not interested in, those decimals. I can use the round function. Select my cell, use 0 for the number of digits because I just want a whole number, and it will round it for me to the next nearest number, which in this case is 1235. So just a helpful function to kind of know. So again, just going back to my Word document here. These next functions here are really ones that you need when you're working in finance. So you've probably heard of some of these terms. So IRR is also known as the internal rate of return. So what that is when you are looking at a series of cash flows, the IRR is kind of what the implied return is there. So say you have like a large upfront investment, so a negative number followed by a large series of positive cash flows. The IRR is going to tell you kind of what your return on your investment is. That's implied by those cash flows. The NPV stands for net present value. So that's going to give you what the present value of an investment is. So say you just have a series of cash flows and you want to discount those to what it means in today's dollars. It's going to discount each cash flow by your specified discount rate and give you kind of a total value. And then sum product is kind of a function that you can use to, I guess, really calculate like an NPV of sorts when you don't actually want to use the NPV function. So I'll show an example to kind of make that a bit clearer. So the first one I'll go through is the IRR. So I have this IRR tab here. So you can see there's basically 3 examples. We're just calling them A, B, and C product designs. We have the book profits for 30 years. So you can see like this example, there's negative cash flows in the first 2 years and then positive cash flows thereafter. So you can almost think of that as like, all right, I had an upfront investment of $1 million. Second year, I had to spend $25,000. But then I expect these profits in the outer years thereafter. So the IRR function is really simple. All I have to do is type in IRR. And I just have to select all of my values. So I'm again gonna, click my value, do Control Shift and down. And I get an IRR of 5%. So what's helpful in Excel is that you can actually copy over formulas and it will basically move the formula to be of those, I guess, cash flows that are, or of the ranges as you move. So kind of show you that if I copy this, paste the formula, I'm going to get 15%. So now if I click on this formula, you'll see it's not still doing the formulas from column C, it's now doing the formulas in column D. So it's telling me what the IRR is for product design B. And then again, I can do it for design C, and it's going to do it over in column E. So of these 3 designs, design B has the highest IRR, so you can kind of think of that as maybe the best return on your investment based on this metric. So then going back to my workbook, then we'll look through the NPV. So we just did exercise 2B, so I'm just going to move back to 2C now. So this worksheet has some sample cash flows of what a bond it looks like. So we have a 10-year bond with a 6% coupon paid semi-annually, meaning that it will pay 6% a year, but it will pay that twice a year. So you'll get half of that twice a year. And the semi-annual yield is 2.5%. So that's kind of what our discount rate is. So you can see in this chart below, you've got half time periods because you get a coupon semi-annually, so every half year. So that I guess this is a $100 base bond. So the coupon comes out to $3 every 6 months or $6 annually, since we have a 6% coupon. And then at the end of the period or at your bond's maturity, you get back the full $100, which is your base amount of the bond or the principal, as well as the last coupon payment of $3. So you can use the NPV function to basically calculate what the price of the bond is. So I'm going to type in NPV. My rate is going to be the 2.5% yield that's on this bond. So I'll just straight up type in 2.5%. And then I'm going to select my cash flows. So the price of this bond is $107.79. So another way to do this is actually using the sum product function. So rather than input the 2.5% into this NPV function, we could actually calculate the discount factors directly. So if you have a cash flow of $3, I'm going to have to discount that at 2.5%. So that would mean I would just divide it by 1 plus 2.5%. So some of you probably are aware of this just from working probably some of your different math classes about how to discount cash flows. You can see after each period, I have to discount it again by another 2.5%. So rather than use that NPV function, I can actually use sum product. So what that is going to do is it's going to take a series of arrays. It's going to multiply basically the rows in those arrays that line up, and then add up all of those products. So really, it's doing exactly what it says. It's summing a series of products. So my first array will be the cash flows. My second array will be the discount factors that I want to multiply each of those cash flows by. And ultimately, again, I get the 107.79 Treasury bond price. So I can pause if anybody has any questions as of now.
Yes. Tommy, thank you. This is a really real world actuarial Excel class plus Excel, like basic bond and other financial knowledge combined. So if among students, if you do not know the terms very well at this point, you don't need to worry about it. I think we can focus on the Excel function themselves for now. But if you have any question at this point, let us know before we move on.
Yeah, feel free to interrupt me at any point if you guys do have questions. You can use the chat or the raising hand, and Inkyung will keep an eye on that for me.
Okay.
So next piece I want to go over is really just copying and pasting. So I did show you guys a bit of that previously, but I kind of want to show you the many different ways that you can copy and paste in Excel. So one way is, say I'm just making a new column and I'm just going to add, say, my premium and my accumulated interest. So now that I have this for this first row, what I could do is copy, so I can either use Control-C, or I can right-click and press copy, or I can go over to my clipboard and press copy. Lots of different ways. And I could just, select the cells that I want to paste it in and press paste. And it will copy down that formula. Again, I could right-click and press paste, or I can use my shortcut of Control-V and paste it that way. Another way to do it, though, if you do have a kind of whole data set like this one, and I want to have this in every single row, I can actually double click the kind of right corner here. So you can see it's like a little target pops up, a black target. And if I just double click when that pops up, it will actually copy down all the way to the end of my data set. So that will work as long as there is something in every value in the column to the left of it. So since I have a value in every row in column L, doing that double click will actually copy down my formula for all rows up until 3160. So that's really helpful, a quick shortcut. Another thing to know is that there's a paste special feature. So we're just going to type in the number 100 over here and copy this. So you can see under paste, there's this paste special feature. So when you go to paste special, you can see there's kind of a bunch of different options. There's formulas, you can only copy the formula. You can paste values. So say in this, 308635, or sorry, 308635, that was a formula, but say I just want to copy that number, I can actually just paste it as values. You can paste just the formats, just the comments on an Excel. Really like a lot of options, even just the column widths of a column that you were in. But something pretty cool is the operation one. So right now my formula is just F2 plus J2. So, but say I actually wanted to do my premium plus accumulated interest divided by 100. So what I can do is actually copy this 100. I'll select this entire range. If I go over to paste special, I can actually press divide. And you'll see now it's divided every formula in my range by 100. So a very helpful feature. Of course, in this case, I could have easily just typed in, divide by 100 and copied it down. But sometimes your formulas are a bit more complex than that, and it's just an easy way to kind of paste in a divide. So the next piece that's very important to know is absolute positioning. So when I say select this cell, K2, on my keyboard, I have the button F4. And when I press that F4, when I'm inside of inside of a cell, you can see these dollar signs pop up. So I don't have to press F4. I can just type in these dollars. You see, just manually type in the dollar signs. And really what those dollar signs mean is it's locking either the column or the row. So just taking the regular K2 for now. if I drag this formula down, when I copy it down to one row below, it moves to K3. When I do it 2 rows down, it copies it down to K4, 5, 6, 7. And then the same if I copy it to the right, it's now going to read L2, it's now going to read M2. So the formula moves with you basically. But if I maybe don't want to do that, say I'm summing something, but don't want to be changing what I'm summing, I can use that absolute positioning. So if I always want to reference K2, I can press F4. It will put the dollar signs on both the column and the row. And now when I go to copy this formula, you'll see it consistently stays as K2 wherever I paste it. So I can paste it anywhere in here, and I'm just going to very consistently just keep it as K2. Alternatively, if I only wanted to lock the row, I can do that. You just have to press F4 again, or again, you can just type in the dollar sign. And if I drag it down, you'll see I'll still get K2 even though I moved rows of where I was copying it. But if I move it to the left, I will still move the columns that I moved. So if I press it again, I can just lock. If I press F4 again, I can just lock the column. And then in that case, when I drag it down, I will move rows. So I'll get K3, K4, K5. But if I drag it to the right, I will continue to just keep column K. So this can be really helpful when you're making formulas on a big data set. Sometimes you just want to very easily just write one formula and copy it into a whole data box. So kind of like what we were doing here, there's ways that you can use that absolute positioning and just copy and paste the formulas into every single box, and it will, read it that way instead of having to manually update or change something as you go to a different cell.
That is really helpful. Actually, actuaries deal with a lot of big data sets, and efficiency is a key. And this tip actually works wonders if you know them.
Yes, it's very, very helpful. So exercise 3 I actually just did. We had the column with premiums and interest, and then I divided everything by 100. In the interest of time, I'm just going to glance over here. So I guess really on that same topic, I will go down to here, emailing parts or whole workbooks. So sometimes it'll be sending someone, as part of your internship, you'll have maybe a table like this where all of your formulas are referencing different workbooks. So say I had my issue ages in workbook A, I have face amounts in workbook B, premium in workbook C, a bunch of different links otherwise. Excel is very cool like that I can, reference something in another workbook, and it will know what to read. So if I have another workbook, say workbook C, saved in my documents, I can actually have that open and I can have a formula that references another workbook. So it's super helpful from a user standpoint. But sometimes if you're taking that workbook and presenting it to your manager, someone else on your team, anyone above your head, you don't want to necessarily send them that workbook with all of these links. because it's very possible that the links can break. So sometimes if, they don't have the same access to drives as you do, or don't have, the same all of the linked documents saved on their computer, the links will break and you'll get a bunch of errors when the person that you sent it to opens it. So this is just kind of a tidbit for when you guys do have internships. It's just super important when you do send workbooks out to just make sure there's no external links in your workbook. So one way to easily do that is when you go to the data tab here, there's this edit links button. So you can see it's grayed out right now because I don't have any links in my current workbook. So that's good. I can send it to whoever I want. But if that is, I guess, not grayed out for you, you can press that button and it will pop up and tell you and list every single workbook that you have links to. And when that is the case, then you can actually, it has a button where you can just press break links and it will save everything as values rather than linking directly to those workbooks. So just a helpful kind of tidbit to be aware of. So now moving on to intermediate Excel. So again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to interrupt me or pause and chat. But
I had a quick question about the intermediate Excel.
yes.
Do you guys use the XLOOKUP function?
XLOOKUP?
So it actually replaces VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. So it does both of them in one formula.
Oh, I didn't actually know about that. So no, I don't actually use that, but helpful to know.
Cool. I'm glad I could teach one thing because you've taught so much.
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with the XLOOKUP, but I am going to show you guys both VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP that Matt just mentioned. So VLOOKUP is a really important function. I know when I was interviewing for internships and full-time jobs, that was a very common question that I got when I was asked, more technical questions. They kind of ask you if you know what a VLOOKUP is or how to use it or what it does. So if you guys haven't been paying attention, this is definitely a good one to pay attention to. But really VLOOKUP helps you find things within a data set. So I'm going to use this example table here where I have a list of policy numbers and I want to know the issue age, face amount, premium, and sex of those policy numbers. So in my policy data tab, you can see I have all of these policy numbers listed, but those ones that I was looking for are just mixed in there. Let's say someone on my team was like, hey, can you give me the premium amount for this policy number? Rather than trying to find it within this, mess of numbers, I can easily use the VLOOKUP function to get it for, a large range of specified numbers. So VLOOKUP, the V stands for vertical. So you can see I have a few different arguments here. My first item is my lookup value, and that's just the policy number. I'm actually going to use the absolute positioning and lock that column B. The next is my table array. So that's going to be my policy data, or what table that these policy numbers are in. So something important to know about VLOOKUP is that the first column of the array that you are using needs to have the lookup values. So if I were to select everything starting from column A, the VLOOKUP would not work because the policy numbers are not in column A, they're in column B. So rather than select starting from column A, I'm going to select starting from column B, since B is the leftmost column, and has the policy number. So I'm just going to select all the data. I'm going to press F4 and lock that array in. And then the next item is my index number, or column index, sorry. So I'm looking for issue age. So my first column is policy number, second column, date of birth, third column is issue age. So I'm just going to type in 3 as my column index number, since I want it to return the third column in the array that I kind of specified. And then for the last argument is range lookup. So there's approximate match and exact match. So in this case, I want exact match, so I'm going to type in false. And what that means is it's going to look exactly for the policy number that I specified. On occasion, you might want to use approximate match, and that would be a case where, say, you don't have, maybe you're not looking for a specific policy number, but say you want to know a value for something rounded. So maybe you have levels of 0, 100, 500, and you want to get, you have a number 250 that's not, necessarily in that table. It will round it for you and kind of give you what range you're looking for. So kind of difficult without an example, but for the most part, I typically use the exact match or false. So now I have my issue age of 45 for this policy number 48124.857. And now I can actually just copy that down since I use the correct absolute positioning. And you can see I got the issue ages for every single policy number here. So using this formula for the other specified fields is just as simple. I would just have to specify a different column number of where the face amount is, where the premium is, where the sex is. But nothing else would change in the formula other than this column index field. Okay, so we just did exercise 7, learned about VLOOKUP. There's also HLOOKUP. So as I said before, the V in VLOOKUP is for vertical, and the H in HLOOKUP means horizontal. So kind of just show you what I mean. In this case, all the policy numbers were in a vertical column. I could have the opposite case where my data was transposed the other way, where all my policy numbers were in the top row, and then my data fields were below it. So if that was the case, I wouldn't be able to use VLOOKUP. I would need to use HLOOKUP, and that would help me specify what row I need rather than what column I need. So now I'm just going to go over COUNTIF and SUMIF. So those really are exactly what they sound like. I'm counting if a criteria is met, and I'm summing if a criteria is met. There's also versions with an S at the end, so SUMIFs with an S and COUNTIFs with an S, and that just is the exact same thing. It just is when there's multiple criteria you want met. So I'm just going to go over the kind of simple COUNTIF and SUMIF. Going back to my data manipulation tab. So in this example, I want to sum the total face for all male policies. So in that case, I'm going to want to use the SUMIF function. So this is taking a sum if my specified criteria is met. So my range is going to be where it specifies male or female. So I'm going to go to column G, select everything here. My next one is my criteria. So I'm going to actually type in M because that was male. You can see that I put quotations around the M, and that's because it's text. So if I didn't put in the quotations, Excel would give me an error. And really that's because Excel might think that I'm typing in another function rather than just a letter. So if I type in M, it might think I mean a formula, like, sum if has letters in it. It thinks that I will be kind of specifying another function in that way. So to kind of tell Excel, no, I don't mean another function, I put quotations around it so it knows all I'm saying is this is a text character that I want to input here. So now I have the range that would specify male or female. I specified I want male. So now I'm going to sum, forget which one I'm going to sum, total face. So I go to the face amount column and again, select everything in there using my Control Shift and arrow keys. You can see it summed all the face amounts for male policies. So COUNTIF works the exact same. The syntax is going to be all of the same. It just is going to have range and criteria. It's not going to have a separate sum range because it's just counting the number of fields that meet the criteria of being male. So you don't need a separate sum range of the face amount. Okay, so we're short on time here. So the last thing I want to show in Excel is just pivot tables. So pivot tables are a super awesome tool in Excel. You can aggregate data, display, something that you want, and really just summarize data and help you do some analysis. So I'm gonna delete this quickly. So how do you create a pivot table? So the first step is just selecting the data that you want to create a pivot table on. So I'm just going to select all of my policy data. I'm going to go to Insert and Pivot Table. So you can see the data set comes up as the data set that I had selected. If I didn't have anything selected, I could have pressed that button and then selected it afterwards. The next piece is where do I want the pivot table to go? So I can either put it in a new worksheet or keep it in the same worksheet, and I can just say where I want to put it. For simplicity, I'm just going to create a new worksheet. So you can see I get this little pivot table box over here. More importantly, I get this pivot table field section. So these fields that are listed are all of the column headers that I had in my data set. And basically I have 4 options of what I want to use for these, fields. So I can use them as a filter, I can use them as a column, I can use them as a row, or I can sum or summarize their values. So I'm going to filter by status. I'm going to use columns as sex, and I can do the death benefit options as my rows. And I'm going to use my face amount as the values. So you can see now I have this cute little table over here. These are my 3 death benefit options, 1, 2, and 3. I have female and male, and then a total. At the top here, I have a filter for status. So right now it's doing all, but I can filter to just choose one of these statuses. I don't even know what these means, but 99L0. I can put those in, and then you can see my numbers change because now it's only looking at the 99L0. So this is super helpful when you have a big data set and just want to know some quick numbers, and you don't have to go and create all of these formulas. Excel pivot table really helps you just summarize them very quickly. Another thing to note is that right now it's doing the sum of the face amount. If I press on this arrow here, I can press value field settings, and I'll get this summarize values by. So right now it's doing sum, but I could do the count. So it would tell me how many policies in my data set are female death benefit option 1. or I could do the average. So I'll just show you the average. You can see it changes to be a lower amount because it's now showing the average base amount of a female death benefit option 1 with a status of 99L0. So pivot tables are a very powerful tool to help you really summarize and aggregate data in that way. So that's kind of it for Excel. There's kind of a wealth more information in this handout that you'll get, and you'll get all of the Excel workbooks too. So I definitely encourage you guys all to kind of go through those on your own and check out the homework, and definitely, email us if you have any questions, and we will have that office hour in 2 weeks to kind of go over this in a bit more detail if you have any questions.
Thank you, Tommy. So we're a little bit short on time. Do you think, Tommy, we have a time to introduce VBA at all?
Yeah,
Probably.
I think I can give a
Great.
brief intro to VBA. So there is a separate handout just on VBA, also known as Visual Basic, or Visual Basic for Applications is the acronym. So this is a programming language that's built into Microsoft's applications. I primarily use it in Excel. That's what most actuaries use it, but you can actually use it in Microsoft's other applications as well. So it's a coding language. It allows you to build functions. So you can build functions for maybe your specific needs that Excel doesn't already have built in. You can automate processes. So something that's manual that you have to continually repeat, you can actually just write the code in VBA and it will, do that task for you. And it uses the Visual Basic programming language. So VBA was the first programming language that I learned. I think programming languages are always intimidating when you first learn them, but once you kind of know a single programming language, it's always easier to get the hang of kind of other ones after. So it's known to be simple and flexible. So if you already know a different programming language, Visual Basic, you can easily pick up. But if you don't know one already, it is known to be simple and flexible. So again, something you can definitely pick up, and it was the first programming language I learned, so definitely possible. So a macro is really where you're going to write the code. So it's a series of commands and functions that are stored in what's called a module, and you can run them to perform the task that you want. So you will write this code, this macro once, and every time you open your Excel workbook, you can run that code again and again to do whatever you specified it to do. So there's really two ways to create a macro. You can either open the VBA editor and write the code from scratch. So when I say code from scratch, I do mean you could, just straight up write it. If you're really good at it, just memorize all the syntax. You can just type it all in. Google is super helpful if there's something that you want to do in VBA/Excel. Odds are someone else on the internet has already tried it, already figured out how to do it, and you can Google that and find out how someone else did it. So you could copy and paste code from the internet, a trusted source, obviously. Or you can, copy code from a friend or even another workbook that you've already written code for. So that's what I mean when I say code from scratch. Just you can open the VBA editor and really type in your code there. The other feature is recording a macro. So that actually lets you press a button, record, the VBA will record everything you're doing, write it in its coding language. And then you can stop recording and you can open the VBA editor and take a look at what the code looks like. And you can actually run it and continue to repeat automatically what you just did, manually recording yourself. So that's kind of a very brief overview. I know we're really out of time here. I was going to show you how to use the macro recorder, but just short on time. Really everything you need to know is kind of in this workbook. So I definitely encourage you guys again to review this handout and take a stab at trying it out yourself. But we'll have the office hours to kind of go over anything you guys want in more detail.
Right. Thank you, Tommy. Yes, this Excel instruction documents as well as the workbooks are created in a way that you guys can take it and do it on your own. And we will be here to help you if you have any questions. So I really appreciate Tommy for your presentation today. That was really helpful. If we are really on time, but I will ask if you guys have any question at this point. Okay. John, would you put up the slide one more time? I want to tell students what we are going to do next time.
Okay.
So,
You should be able to see.
yeah, next slide. So everyone, we have another meeting coming up, second week of March, Friday, 12th. We will have another meeting and we will talk about the contemporary issue. What we're going to talk about is the COVID, the impact of the COVID to insurance industry from actuarial perspective. So it's going to be very informative and it's going to be very insightful. I encourage everyone to join and come back and have take an advantage of this session to learn more about the COVID. And I also would like to give you an update on some scholarship information, new scholarship information. So John, if you go to next slide. So New York Life has a scholarship for Georgia State actuarial student. If you are sophomore and junior actuarial science student, and if you have passed one exam, you are eligible. And the application is open to the end of March. So please check it out. And if you are eligible, go ahead and apply. And SOA and CAS together jointly announced very exciting news recently. They have diversity scholarship. This scholarship originally reimbursed exams and study material for exam P and FM, but now they expand the scholarship to cover IFM, LTEM, and MASI. So it's really a lot of preliminary exams for students. So if you are studying for these exams, take advantage of this scholarship opportunity. The key distinction from Georgia State exam reimbursement scholarship is that if you score below the passing mark is 6, but if you score very close to the passing mark, if you score 4 or 5, they still reimburse you for your exams and one study material. So if you score that, remember this scholarship opportunity. The application is open for 12 months after you receive the official score. So it's really good information to take a note on. So that's pretty much what we have today. Again, remember, there is an office hour, March 11th, Thursday, from 3 to 4, to cover any questions you have on this Excel or VBA workshop. And homework, you can send us to the email that we provided to you. So maybe, John, go back to the 2 slide up. you send your submission to the daapgsu@gmail.com, then we'll gather your submission, review it, and we'll try to cover your questions during the office hour. All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Hope
Thank you, Tommy.
this was helpful.
It was really good to meet you all, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.